What's going on, everybody? We're back again looking at approach or style. And as promised, we're looking at the 1966 championship match between Boris Spassky and Tigran Petrosian. Uh, in the previous video, we looked at Spassky versus Geller, and I had mentioned that these players were basically mirrors of each other, very similar styles. And Spassky was just, a little bit better, I would say, in that style than Geller, as shown in at least that particular matchup. Now here we have contrast of styles where we have Spassky. Of course, he was a universal player, as I always say, but right, he definitely excelled in these attacking games. He was great when it came to the use of hanging pawns, isolated pawns, and just a dynamic player who really appreciated like a lot of piece activity in these games. Petrosian, on the other hand, wow, what do I think of when I think of Petrosian? I think of defense. I think of prophylaxis. I think of conservative play. I don't think of swashbuckling attacks, right? I don't think of sacrifices everywhere. Of course, you can find these in Petrosian's games. He was a fantastic tactical player. But unlike Tao, who used his tactical ability to destroy his opponents, Petrosian used his tactical ability to thwart his opponent's ideas. Right, and so this is the stage that is set for these two players. 1966 championship. So for again, those of you who don't know, Chess Audiobooks is on Lee Chess, chess.com, Twitter, and Instagram. So come see me, and also hit that like and subscribe button. Get down there in the comments and say hi, if nothing else, right? And check the links below also for more content and also to support my channel. Again, we're talking about approach. I haven't heard too many players out there. I've been playing chess for a long time. I haven't heard many players say, you know what, I want to play like Petrosian. Everybody like respects Petrosian, right? And admires him, but I haven't heard many players say, you know what, I want to play like that. So it's always interesting. Players, say, yeah, I want to play like Karpov, I want to play like Kasparov, or Tao, or Alekin, or Spassky, but haven't heard many players say, hey, I want to play like, Capablanca, of course. I want to play like Petrosian, He was always pictured as having like this mysterious style, and, there's this famous conversation that Botvinnik supposedly had with Spassky after losing his match to Petrosian, and he asked Botvinnik asked Spassky, was he able to guess Petrosian's moves, and Petrosian said, no, I wasn't able to guess them either, and that was like considered like a great praise, right? That he couldn't anticipate what Petrosian was doing. So again, this is game one of the 1966 match, and let's explore the contrast in styles and approach. And hopefully this will help you understand, how to go about finding your approach in chess and the importance of that. So, game one started out from Spassky with the white pieces, e4, c6. Another thing I want to say too is that every player has their nemesis, and for Petrosian, it was Geller, who had I think his overall record was I wrote it down somewhere. Yeah, he had 5 wins against Petrosian, 3 losses, and 32 draws. So, listen, if Geller was able to defeat Spassky in their candidates match, who knows, the history of the chess world would be perhaps different today. Maybe Geller is world champion, right? But he couldn't get past Spassky. So, the game started out e4, c6, and the first thing I want to point out is this Carol Khan. Again, how do you deal with aggressive attacking players. You try to slow the position down, right? And this is the birth of French defense, Carol Khan, these type of hedgehog positions, right? Hippopotamus, all that stuff, right? Designed to bog the attacking player down in the mud, right? He gets frustrated, right? He can't, sack pieces and have the open lines that he wishes for, and he eventually makes a mistake and losing the end game. So here you can already see the contrast in styles. When Spassky played Geller, you saw e4, e5. They went into martial attacks, etc., etc. Both players were willing, to lock horns, so to speak. Here you can see Petrosian. He's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. I'll let you get the center. I'm gonna counterattack, and I'm gonna dodge and slip, and you're gonna make a mistake, and I'm gonna capitalize. Game continued, typical Khan fashion. This is a very typical version nowadays. This is actually known as the Spassky variation, right? As it was played in this match. It's still viable to this day. Notice how it reflects Spassky's style. All the pieces are being activated, right? Nice healthy position with white. You can't really do too much better than this if you had the white pieces here. Again, we're not doing too much detailed analysis. I just want you to see the approach of both players. You see Petrosian, conservative, defensive, very solid here, right? Spassky, you see him, taking space, right? Piece play, development, all right? So which style, which approach is going to win the day? C5, and this is typical. And this game ended in a draw. After bishop c5, it's pretty equal, but this set the stage for this particular match here. All right, Spassky was not able to make a dent in the solid defense of Petrosian here. Game 2, Petrosian had the white pieces. Now, you knowing what kind of approach Petrosian has, you can almost kind of guess, within a range what type of openings he's going to play. Are you going to see King's Gambit from Petrosian? No. Are you going to see Danish or Goran Gambit? No. Are you going to see any type of aggressive system? Are you going to see an open system or closed system? Probably. You're probably going to see closed. And what do we have? Same opening as Smyslov here. We have C4 coming out. And so E6 from Spassky, which is a common response to the English, which is very flexible. Nice C3, and now we transpose into this Queen's Gambit situation here. D4, and now Bishop E7. Bishop E7 is a good way to kind of avoid the exchange, not avoid the exchange variation, because obviously White can capture on D5. However, Bishop E7 delays the knight coming to F6, which is usually meant by Bishop G5. So usually you would see knight F6, then C takes D5, E takes D5, and Bishop G5 pinning the knight. So Bishop E7 kind of throws a monkey wrench there, right, by delaying that. So knight F3, knight F6, Bishop G5, castle, E3. And remember, when it comes to contrasting styles and approach, all right, each player is trying to impose their approach, will on the other player. All right. So remember, I told you that Spassky can appreciate isolated pawns, hanging pawns, and free piece play. So this particular position, right? You can see him trying to angle there. He plays this was it Tartakower? Yeah, Tartakower variation. Spassky trades off, and again you can see him preparing to play the move C5. So you can see Spassky is trying to impose his will on the position, and Petrosian doing the same thing. So this was a well-fought game that also ended in a draw. But again, notice what Black is willing to take on compared to White's position. Also notice too that Black has more space in this position here. At D4, of course, exploiting the queen on E7. Bishop d7. More pieces come off. And basically, listen, Petrosian just wants to trade down and try to show that these pawns are weak in the ending. But notice how super solid Petrosian is. And when I think of Petrosian, that's what I think of. It's like solid, kind of like just almost fortress like, just not making any mistakes until you make a mistake and going from there. All right. He's greatly influenced by Nimzovich. And again, now the pawn, this is theory on isolated hanging pawns. Now that the pawns have been disjointed, now you can see the weaknesses appear. But Spassky is able to generate enough activity to where he's able to secure the draw in the position. Let's go to the next game. Game 3. Again, Carol Khan. This time, Spassky exchanges. Again, he's looking for activity. And remember, I told you he's not afraid to take on isolated pawns. And you can see Spassky does that right out of the opening. Why? Because his approach is activity. He wants activity. Meanwhile, Petrosian, very solid. Okay, no pawn weakness. He doesn't mind giving up the space. He doesn't want any weaknesses in his position. And that's what you can see here. This game also ended in the draw. Let's move forward. English again. Very conservative play. This time you can see Petrosian, at least having more space, not just occupying the first 3 ranks. But again, very blocked nature in the position. No free piece activity. Now you see Petrosian, just engineering the breakthrough on the queen side here. This game also draw. So now we're going to go to our first decisive game. So after 6 draws, we come to game 7. Spassky again with the white pieces and Petrosian with the black pieces here. So here we can see it's like, I don't know what to call it, Tory attack, sort of. It seems like Spassky is just trying to mix it up a little bit, right? Switch up. Maybe he can, get lucky here. So he switches his opening, his main opening. He goes for like this sideline, the Tory attack. Petrosian plays very good against it. Just develops his pieces. Knight takes d7, bishop f4, and you can already see again Spassky willing to take these chances. In this instance, he has these double pawns on the e file. And now Petrosian gets to work. Knight f3, h6, and notice also Petrosian is not quick to castle, right? He doesn't give Spassky that automatic, attacking chance by just castling kingside, and next thing you know, Spassky's playing, bishop takes h6 and all of this stuff like that. b4, there is g5. So Petrosian actually turns the tides, and he starts attacking on the other side of the board where white is committed his king. Notice here, Petrosian makes sure the files come open. He doesn't make the move g4, keeping everything closed and halting the attack. Castle queenside by Petrosian. a4, c4. Notice how Petrosian keeps his side of the board closed. So maybe instead of a4, perhaps a move. I'm not analyzing right now, but maybe keeping the position open. If it's tactically feasible, a move like b takes c5 here, at least to have one open file. Because after a4, c4, now you have to. How are you going to get the files open on the queen side? Bishop b2 happens, a6, and again, Petrosian's just going to lock that up on the queen side when Spassky makes a move like a5 or b5. King h1, rook dg8, rook g1. The position kind of plays itself. a5, b5, obviously, again. takes. I'm sorry, not Spassky-Petrosian gives up the exchange. Well known for giving up the exchange. Bishop d6, queen e3, and it's just funny how Petrosian was patient all of this time, and now he's in the middle of an opposite wing attack against a player who's a renowned attacking player. But it's him with all the chances here. Spassky has really no chances to get to Petrosian's king here. e5, d2, f5, undermining the e pawn, and now e4, f4, queen e4, knight f6, queen f5, check, king d8, bishop c8, and these are some strong moves. g3, and h3 is coming to open up the h file anytime. There it is, h3, bishop f1, rook h8, and this is just bad day at the office for Spassky. Now the center is under attack, and these type of moves are backbreaking. When your opponent makes a move that you think really can't be made, it hurts. Again, this is homework for you to do. Knight g4. Why Spassky was able to make this move. I'm sorry, Petrosian. But f takes g4, f3, and the pawns just roll. Rook g2, and just f takes g2 check. And this was the first decisive game in the match. So you saw a harbinger of things to come, because you can see that in a way Petrosian kind of beat Spassky in the very game or style that he was looking to play, right? You had everything that attacking play would want. You would want the opposite wing attack, everybody's castled on opposite sides of the board, right? Heavy pieces on the board, okay? But Petrosian actually outplayed Spassky in his own realm, and usually the result, right, means more than just what we see on the score sheet. It's usually a psychological blow, especially after all of these games have been played. They've played 7 games, nobody has won, or 6 games, no one has won, and then all of a sudden you finally get the position that you're looking for and you lose. All right, so that's a very important thing to realize, psychological aspect. So the next game, quick draw from Petrosian. Petrosian goes back to his solid play, and Spassky is not able to get anything out of the opening whatsoever. Game 8. Game 9, again another draw. And now game 10. Petrosian again with the white pieces. Again, another English. And here Spassky goes for a King's Indian. So you can see that Spassky's kind of switching up their openings a little bit here. So this indicates to me that he's having a little trouble here breaking, figuring out Petrosian, because first he was playing, he played this Tartakower variation. Like this, he's playing Tarish, type formations. Then he's playing, with the white pieces, Tory attack. It's like he's not sure and just looking for a remedy at this point, which is kind of bad in the match, because you should be, prepared already. I'm sure he was, but he's just running into, Petrosian, at the top of his powers, and having a difficult go of it. So here he tries a King's Indian, very aggressive, and at the same, it's true to Spassky's style. Let's see how Petrosian handles this. So he takes the space in the center, of course, and now you have this so-called check Benoni formation with pawns on e5 and c5 at the same time, which is solid but passive. So I would think that this position is more conducive to Petrosian than Spassky. All right, the solid passive approach. However, the gameplay is very clear. It's possible to play on the queen side or the king side. After all, a general rule when the center is blocked, that the play then transfers to the wings of the board. So as you can see, one potential break for black is to play b5 at some point, as you will see in the Benoni, right? a6, b5. Um, but at this moment, it looks problematic. Just the knight is kind of out of place on a5, and white's knight on c3 is very strong and kind of will prohibit that, at least for the time being. You know, black needs some preparation, maybe bishop d7, something of that nature. The other possibility for black in this position is f5 to orchestrate that move, and come barreling down the board with the king side attack. All right, so these are decent moves. However, Petrosian's position is extremely solid, so it's hard to imagine like just some attack really working because Petrosian has no weaknesses in the position. His pieces are healthy, and how will Spassky win here? So I'm glad that's not my problem, or wasn't my problem to figure out. And of course, Spassky goes for it. So he plays knight g4 in order to execute this plan of f5. So e4. So Petrosian says, no, we won't have any of that. And Spassky says, yes, we will. Or as Obama used to say, yes, we can. And so, therefore, how is that voice, by the way? All right. Anyway, so e4, f5, e takes, g takes f5. So Spassky has what he wants. However, his position is taking a little, his no pun intended, but a little positional blow here, as the g file is open. This king side is a little weak here. This is very instructive now how Petrosian plays from here on out. So knight d1 and now b5. So you can see Spassky is really going for it. He's playing both sides of the board, and he's adopted both plans that I have mentioned. And the reason why is that since this trade of the f pawn, it's very difficult for black to advance either one of those pawns. Okay, if he advances the e pawn, then the f4 square becomes, very weak, and black can just occupy that. If he advances the other pawn, the f pawn, then white will just simply occupy the e4 square. All right. He instead plays b5. Now f3 happens. Spassky plays e4 with this. Put a graphic in there. Add to the professionalism. So you can see right here, this bishop on g7, right, is attacking the rook there, right, to kind of offset this threat that Petrosian has against the knight. All right. So Petrosian just simply plays bishop b2. He's like, hey, I'm going to trade off the bishop. And now the problem is going to be, if the bishops are traded off, then the king side becomes even weaker. This is a position analogous to the Dutch defense. And you'll see this a lot in the Dutch, where the weakening of the king side early on comes back to haunt black, especially after he loses the bishop on g7. And sometimes white will even give up that bishop on g7, or trade that bishop on g7 for his rook on a1. So let's continue. E takes, b takes, bishop takes rather, bishop, queen takes b2. Now the queen has this diagonal. And now knight e5 from Spassky, bishop e2, and now f4. So Spassky is very determined, right? He's attacking, right? He's staying true to his approach. G takes f4, and now bishop h3. Now fantastic move from Petrosian. He just plays knight e3. He says, go ahead, you can take my rook. He gives up the exchange. Knight g6. And part of it is because the remaining light square bishop is going to be very dominant in the position, especially if the bishop can get to e6, or even if white can put a knight on e6. So giving up the exchange for Petrosian was not a bad deal, because now black has no guardian of the light squares, and Spassky's king is pretty weak. All right. Another thing is that there's really kind of like two open or semi-open files, if you will. So the rooks aren't really that valuable or as valuable in this position as they normally would. All right. So this all influenced the call of Petrosian. Bishop g4 again. He wants to go right to e6, and another powerful move. He just gives up the pawn. Like, go ahead, take it. Knight takes f4, and now Spassky gives up the other rook, right? So he's not valuing the rooks in this position as much as those minor pieces, all right? Because he understands that, listen, the files, the open, there's not enough open files to really justify, keeping the rooks like that. And so he rather dominate these diagonals. Bishop e6, so now the rook goes back, knight e4, queen h4, attacking the knight on e4, knight d6, queen g5, king h1, and rook h7. And now you see one of the great combinations in history. I even made a t-shirt with this position on it at one time, which was after bishop takes f7, rook takes f7. This is the t-shirt I had made with white to move here, which of course Petrosian played queen h8, and if king takes queen, then knight takes f7, which is a fork. And so you saw a brilliant game by peak Petrosian right there, and you saw actually the positional style, right? That defensive style overcome the all-out attacking style of the black pieces there. And that's what's great about watching these type of matches, is that you can see the contrast in styles. All right, just moving on. Several draws took place, and then finally in game 13, after 91 moves, of course we're not going through that game, Spassky was able to get his first win on the board. And just show you the opening, though, it did come out of the Caro-Kann. And so you can see that despite the difficulty, Spassky still stuck to his style. Right? He never gave up here, and he was able to win a hard-fought game here. And again, if you notice the difference between this Caro-Kann and the last one, is that now black has this isolated pawn here, and Petrosian's position isn't as solid as it was before. All right, black has some some issues in the position, as well as white. Right, you can see white's B pawn, the F pawn look a little crazy, right? But the question that you have to ask is, who would appreciate this position more, right? Spassky or a player like Petrosian, who relishes a solid defense, solid position, no weaknesses, etc. Again, Petrosian gives up the exchange, but this time doesn't work out in his favor. All right, and he went on again, like I said, to lose this game in 91 moves. A few more draws. And now, in game 19, Spassky had the white pieces again. This is a very close match. And Petrosian switches from Caro-Kann, right? Remember, he was having a little trouble, and you got to figure Spassky, in the seconds, in between games, working on these little problems here, So Petrosian switches to Caro-Kann. I'm sorry, switches to the French. But notice how, although Petrosian switched openings, he didn't switch approach. The approach is still the same. And the approach is, I want to play very solid, defensive, and keep like a closed position, create no weaknesses in my position, and provoke my opponent, to make some type of error or concession, and capitalize on that at some later point. And so you can see he gets what he wants here, right? Spassky's in this French. Position's kind of closed. And I think this actually is good for Spassky, this type of position. The fact that Petrosian played f6. All right. Of course, he has to deal with this e pawn at some point. But to me, this allows Spassky to demonstrate his piece play, because now Petrosian has these 3 pawn islands, and I think this is again more conducive to a player like Spassky, the position that is. And Spassky went on to win this game also in 68 moves, so definitely hard fought games. Queens came off the board, and good fighting game. But again, you can see the contrast in what each player is looking for. Game 20, very important game. You see Spassky has the black pieces, and Petrosian just started with Queen's Gambit, and you can see the return. Spassky, willing. He's saying, hey, when you play like this, he's saying, hey, I'm willing to take on the isolated pawn here. But Petrosian will have none of it. A very similar line to what he played against Geller. And again, this position is more along the lines of Petrosian, Botvinnik, Smyslov, those type of players with the white pieces, right? You have your classical advantages, right? Bishop here, and slightly, some more space in the center. Okay, and you have a few targets, right? Petrosian does not have to worry about a sacrifice coming, or some big attack. So now he can slow play. And this is exactly what Petrosian did in game 20. Right, there's another weakness, right? It's an isolated pawn. We're going to gang up on that. And eventually it falls. Spassky again goes for the activity, but he just doesn't have enough compensation. Right, he tries to make something happen here. Petrosian trades down. And we can see the victor was Petrosian right there. Spassky resigned. All right, so let's just wrap this up. Whoops. Go back. Petrosian would win again in game 22. If Spassky would play this famous move b5, right? That's not a mistake. It's like a orangutan in reverse, right? So reverse Polish opening. Just trying to. It's funny because in a way, it's like he reminded me of Fischer, like what Fischer was doing to him. I'm talking about Spassky, in that Fischer would switch up openings and kind of throw Spassky off, and it seems like Spassky was trying to do that to Petrosian, but it didn't really work. Spassky just played real solid, and it's funny because this setup right here with the knights on e2, d2, bishops on d3 and e3, you go look at Paul Morphy, and you'll see this exact setup against him against a modern defense. I think I forget which player it was, but g6 it was played, and this is what Morphy used to play against the Fianchetto defenses, like g6 and b6. This same structure, very solid, of course, which fits, right? Petrosian pieces come off the board, and Petrosian's is good. He's like, yeah, I got my space advantage. He's content with the draw, and you got to remember he's winning the match at this point. It's game 22. Spassky kind of needs to win. This is why he played b5. So Spassky, he's like, you know what? I can't repeat. Queen c7, and of course, Spassky quickly becomes better here at this point. Right, all Spassky's pieces become very active, and here resignation came from Spassky. All right, so I wanted to go back real quick for you, because I know some of you like, oh, why did he resign after Queen B8? Idea here is just Bishop F7. So I mean, listen, Spassky was already busted at this point, but Queen B8 just sped things up. The continuation of the Bishop takes F7, and this is all basically all you need to know is the Rook on A7, the Queen down there on F2, all hold very important positions where they're pinning the black pieces, right? Just taking their mobility away. So the idea is Rook takes, Bishop take, if Bishop takes, of course, knight e5, and there's the pin revealed along with the double check. If Queen the King e6, then that leaves the mate there. If he goes back there again, he's gonna drop this bishop here. The king is gonna go and get checked around. So he was totally justified in his resignation there. So Spassky, of course, he needed to win. He tried, but again, I guess Petrosian's not the dude that you to play if you need to win, right? You have to play something desperate. Just on a side note, very difficult to play. I'm not gonna say suspect openings, but openings that are not in the top tier against Petrosian, guys like that, Kramnik and stuff like that. So if you look at their games, you will see they have very good records against like the Dutch defense, King's Indian, things like that. It's very hard to play those type of games, the type of openings considered at the very top levels to be anti-positional. Those guys would just shut that stuff down. Game 23, Spassky strikes back. He figures out the French of Petrosian, and he exchanges here. Petrosian tries to switch up the variation. He probably should have just kept the same thing, but he's probably worried about some type of preparation being found, and he kind of steps out of his lane a little bit, and who am I to say that, right? His lane, but he allows Spassky into his wheelhouse of this attack and play, but he probably figured in this variation of French there'll be some exchange of pieces, and he'll probably get an easy draw. But watch what Spassky does here. See, he casts on the opposite side, creates some weakness, and he starts attacking, right? And with this superior position, he shows that he can play endgames too. And Spassky went on to win this game. You see, he is this 3-2 majority on the queen side. Of course, the pawns is racing up the board, and Petrosian had enough. All right. In game 24, sorry, it went too far. Game 24 was drawn after epic battle, and Petrosian retained his title as world champion. Spassky had the black pieces here, and you can see again, Petrosian staying true to his style, super conservative, right? Make sure he's fortified on the king side, protected, and then just gradually exchanging everything off here, and credits to Spassky, just hanging in there and fighting, and actually not losing the final game. So that was that story of styles and that matchup between Petrosian and Spassky. I hope you enjoyed that. Please hit all those subscribe buttons, donate to my channel. I would appreciate that greatly. Also, check the links below for DVDs and videos, and do some research on your own and figure out what your style is, what's your approach to the game, and ask yourself, check your openings, and ask yourself, do my openings match, my approach or how I feel? Is there a certain player that you feel matches your style the most? Ask yourself that question. Where do you feel most comfortable at? In other words, would you want to be Spassky, or would you want to be Petrosian? Would you want to be Geller or Smyslov or Tal or Tal or Botvinnik? Which player? And it goes on and on. Kramnik or Anand. Which guy would you want to be in that equation, and that'll help you in choosing, your chess openings and your general positional approach to the game. So I hope you enjoyed that. I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Let me know, um, what you think, and if you have any questions, feel free to put it there. And I'm sure, besides myself, other members in the chess community will be glad to throw in their 2 cents, because chess players love to do that. So with that, again, thank you for joining me once again, and I'll see you guys on the next video.